So, I should be live right now. Hello, everyone who's gonna listen to this. We're back with the Jaded Talk number 19. Today, we're gonna talk about the Corellian Trilogy, Book 2, which is Assault on Selonia. And, yeah, what can I say? It's a book, certainly. Things do happen in this book. There is a beginning, a middle part, and also an end. And yeah, yeah, that's the book. See you guys next time. No, you're gonna notice when we talk about the book that there's not a whole lot happening here because, yeah, as other people pointed out who have people who have read this book already before me, this is really a plot for one book, like a pretty solid plot for one book that has been stretched out into 3 books because I guess trilogies just was the thing to do back in the day. I'm not sure. But yeah, and I think it's probably, I have finished the entire trilogy by now. I think it's most noticeable probably in this book that there really is no justification of having that book be so long as it is. And yeah, as is demonstrated by my response here, the comment by Fabi's gone, but it was like, what actually happened on Selonia that gives the book its title, Assault on Selonia? And I'm like, yeah, there was a fight there. So we're gonna talk about that. Yeah, and 10 minutes, that would be pretty high up there in terms of length for this book to talk about. But yeah, I guess there's not really a whole lot of bad things to say, though some that I definitely want to point out, some bad things, and we're gonna come to them. But yeah, this book is just it's mostly pretty there. Nothing more to say, really. Yeah, we could just briefly look at the cover. It's a cover. There is, I assume that could be Selonia in the background here. We do have Han Solo being big here. We have Centerpoint Station, an X-Wing, a Millennium Falcon. We have Threk and South Solo for the first time. I don't think he was on the Showdown at Centerpoint cover, and I'm not sure if he is on any NJO covers. I don't believe so. So this might be the actual only cover appearance of Threk and South Solo. And yeah, we have Luke and Leia here. So there you go. The title is it's a title, Assault on Selonia. Yeah, there is an assault at Selonia. So there you go. The German title is basically identical, so there's nothing to say there. And I guess, yeah, since this is going to be a short one, so let's just jump straight ahead, I would say. So chapter 1. Yeah, at the end of the last book, there was the revelation that the hidden leader of the League of Humans was Threk and South Solo, so the evil cousin of Han Solo, and he arrested Han. And now Han is brought to Threkken, who keeps him as leverage because he eventually wants to negotiate with Leia about the future of Corellia. And that's what Han is obviously pretty useful for, because obviously, yeah, he is Leia's husband. But nevertheless, he wants to see him suffer. So what Threkken does is he brings in a Selonian to fight him. Issue for him is, though, that Threkken does not speak Selonian, whereas Han does. And so what he manages to do is he communicates with her in Selonian. He's like, it doesn't really matter if anyone can understand us. We're fucked either way, basically. So might as well just try this instead. She agrees. They agree on having a fake fight, basically, to give Threkken the idea that they actually had a real fight, and then to just disable. So for Drachmus, that's the name of the Selonian, for Drachmus to quickly dispose of Han, like not to kill him, but to make him unconscious or something, but to make it believable enough so that Threkken believes there's nothing going on, and they will start to plan their escape together. The problem is Han gets a bit too into it and he starts to attack her actually, like to make it believable. But yeah, he overdoes it and his ankle gets injured. And of course, it's always the ankle. Though now that I think of it, I don't even believe that this injury leads anywhere. So that just happens. I was like, yeah, ankle fracture or something because like he sprained his ankle because of course that's gonna at some point presumably make it more difficult for him to escape from somewhere. But I don't even think this pays off. So he's just injured and that's it. And yeah, he then actually gets really attacked by her because he makes her mad and she like gets into the whole instinct thing and has an actual fight with him. She still ultimately manages to hold back, but not without seriously beating him up. And yeah, that was really it for the first chapter. I was like, I mean, I can't believe that Thrakken's faction, which does believe in human supremacy, wouldn't bother to learn Selonian. I can reasonably buy that, and also that they don't have anyone there who will know Selonian. It's like, yeah, sure, I guess so. Why not? Sure. But yeah, that's really it for chapter 1. Chapter 2. So the Lady Luck with Luke and Lando reaches now Coruscant, and Luke doesn't want to speak over the comm system, but he would rather land on the planet to just really be sure that only those people who are supposed to hear the message that they have are even going to listen into it. It's like, yeah, okay, makes sense. What they do is they go to the lower regions of Coruscant to meet up with NRI, so the New Republic Intelligence. And they even organized going in there through multiple entrances so that nobody who potentially is onto them could find out where they are, which is also pretty nice, pretty believable. They're even because the lower levels of Coruscant, that's where the weirder, more dangerous creatures come from, and there's a bunch of ghouls there that basically form a natural guard of the room that they are in. I mean, obviously they are not quite there mentally, but they effectively serve as guards for the room because they just attack anyone who tries to approach their area. And yeah, there's this pretty nice scene where Luke takes control of them with the Force, but he isn't doing it for too long, because at that point they could slowly start to he's slowly going to start to hurt himself if he tries to force his will onto the minds of these things too much, which I don't know if there's a mention of this kind of effect that Force use has ever again, but it's a pretty interesting concept that breaching the mind of another life has this risk associated with yourself. And it's it sounds pretty believable to me, at least. So exactly, we have that. Lando, I don't know what Lando's deal was in this book, but he just kept being a dick to the droids for no real apparent reason. There's not a reason given why specifically now Lando is so mad about the droids, because he usually is not, but he just is. So there you go. I'm not a big fan. Take that in whatever way you wish to. And yeah, so they have a little talk there, and basically what they ultimately determine is that Centerpoint Station is responsible for both the communication interference that's been going on in the Corellian system and also the interdiction field. And they do wonder how the hell Corellia even has something like that, because Corellia has not, historically, not really been a center for technology specifically, but more so for trade. And it's a fair question. The thing is that the why, I mean, we know what the point of Centerpoint Station is towards the end. We still don't really know why specific, who even really put it there. There's no explanation given. It's left open, and possibly for another author to pick up at some other point to explain what exactly this thing is doing there. But yeah, for now we just know or we just assume that we know that it's responsible for the communication field and the interdiction field. And what we have now is we have a familiar character coming back, which is Gariel Captizan. If you remember, if you've read Truce at Bakura, Gariel is basically Luke's love interest in Truce at Bakura. And now we know that, okay, Luke is gonna have to go there and to ask for a fleet, because the New Republic, as we've heard last time, which is still dumb, is incapable of organizing a fleet right now and needs help. And so they're gonna go to Bakura, because last that they knew, Gariel at least was Prime Minister of Bakura at some point, and they hope that they can have successful negotiations about that there. And I was like, I mean, I don't necessarily need to retread old grounds with Gariel. I think out of all non-Mara Jade love interests of Luke, she's the most normal one as a character. She's the least obnoxious one. Like, if I remember others, there's only Jem, Arcana, and obviously Callista. None of those really were impressive in any way. So, yeah, Gariel is relatively nice in that department. But yeah, there you go. That's going to happen now. And chapter 3, we're still with Luke. He apparently thought about Gariel all the time in the past, which is interesting that he mentions that now, because if we go through it chronologically, he never bothered to even once talk about Gariel at all. Not when Callista was a thing, not when Arcana was a thing. Like, there never was this feeling as though he was hung up on Gariel in any way. So of course that's just a bit of revisionism here, which is, I mean, fairly normal for a Bantam at this point. So there you go. I mean, fair enough. Like, the Korani trilogy was released fairly early on, at least compared to other books which were published later on, even though they were in the timeline earlier. But still, like even in the Thrawn trilogy, Luke didn't mention Gariel a single time, because of course she didn't exist there. And so for now to try and make her into this more important character to Luke than she really was is it's not good. It doesn't fit, in my opinion. And yeah, 3PO is like he's like kind of insulting Luke when he's talking about Gariel, because he mentions like that she got married to Tertanas, which, if you've read the Truce of Bakura, you remember Tertanas being like the imperial local officer there. But Tertanas at this point is dead already, so she's now widowed with a child called Melinza. And 3PO keeps saying, "Oh, don't worry, Master Luke. She probably forgot about you," and obviously doesn't realize that Luke isn't so pleased with that information. Of course, he's now a bit hung up about it, which I mean, I guess that was sort of funny, I would have to say. And yeah, Lando is still a dick, but yeah, this time understandably so, because 3PO was kind of being himself there, weirdly enough, being the customs droid, but really not knowing about the customs of humanity still. But yeah, Lando was nice to Luke. At least he was trying to cheer him up, like, "Hey, don't worry, it's not that bad." So that was nice, at least. And Calendar, so the NRI agent from the last book, she reaches Coruscant, and of course the problem is that she's there in a stolen ship, and she's just trying to fly straight up to Coruscant, which means people like the army there will assume that she is an imposter or an attacker. And what she needs to do in order to get recognized as an agent is to repeat like a code phrase 3 times. The problem is, I mean, it makes sense that this is something she needs to do. The problem is that there should be something that is like a more immediate help, because she gets attacked, and it was pretty close at times. Like, she almost could have been killed there. but still she needed to say the code phrase, then like wait for a specific amount of time, and then say it again and do that 3 times, which is, yeah. I mean, if she surrendered like, hey, I'm an agent of the New Republic, there should be something in place there to, like, I don't know, arrest her and not just shoot her down indiscriminately. I feel like that is a decision that could potentially backfire for the New Republic if they are successful with it. So yeah, not a big fan of that. But she ultimately manages to be recognized as an agent, and also to hold back the information that she has until Luke Skywalker arrives, who just now wanted to actually leave and witness the thing, and then, got to the ship that Calendar was pulled to and got the information that she had. So, I guess it turned out well in the end. So, chapter 4, so Jason and Jaina, we know that they escaped on their own with Chewie and with Ibrahim, so their Dral home teacher, basically, or like a homeschool, person. And they're basically dedicating half their time each to take care of Anakin. And I like this here because the solo kids are kind of a weird aspect to me in this book. Jason and Jaina are relatively adult for their age, which is pretty nice. And I like that Anakin is more so, I mean, crybaby maybe sounds more negative than it's meant to be because he's a child, obviously, but he is very much more emotional than Jason and Jaina, and it forces them. And there will be nice scenes and even nicer scenes in Showdown at Center Point where you see that paid off. It forces Jason and Jaina to be a bit more adult than they usually would have had to be if they just, lived a normal childhood, which is pretty nice, I have to say. And they're like, dedicating half their time each to keep an eye on Anakin, which is pretty cool. And yeah, Anakin, we're gonna see that here, and it's really a thing throughout the trilogy, is that he has a level of genius, like in this book, that really stretches beyond logic for me, because it's just it doesn't work to me. There is he has a too easy time at doing the things that he does, specifically in regards to technology, of course. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of this, and I take whatever good scene I have with the solo kids in this one, at least. So there you go, we had that. And otherwise, there really wasn't anything to say about this chapter. So the Falcon, as we know, escaped from Corellia and flew to Drell, so the home planet of Ibrahim. And they landed at the place of Ibrahim's aunt, who's called Marcha, and who will join what I just call the Drell party until the end of the trilogy, basically. So there's that. Chapter 5. So yeah, we're back with Han. So Thraken still keeps Han, so the New Republic won't just, bomb him to death at some point, because of course they would risk Han too. And I mean, I jokingly said that this was quite the bold strategy, because this isn't really in character for the New Republic to not put Han in danger when they could save him. There is this meme, and I might, I might at some point do like a retrospective view on all of this, but yeah, Han and the New Republic have a very, very frozen, like a very cold relationship throughout the Bantam era, really, like at least most of it. So I guess I liked the insinuation by Thraken that this is what is normal, because like, oh, guess you didn't get the memo, Thraken. A lot more authors didn't think this would be normal for the New Republic. So there you go. Yeah, and Han, so they are basically like fighting, I mean, verbally fighting. And Han just tries to gaslight Thraken into, telling him more about what his actual plan is, for a chance to gain like some form of information. And it actually works. And he finds out that Thraken basically just wants to locally rebuild the Empire, locally meaning in the Corellian sector. And the problem is, and this is a foreshadowing that's unfortunately going to be very much paid off towards the end of the trilogy is that Thraken is not really that scary or particularly competent of a villain. He has this tendency to get baited pretty easily, and he goes along with Han talking to him, which he doesn't need to because he's fully at the advantage, and he isn't even required to talk to Han other than it being an ego thing, and then he wants to rub in his temporary victory. But yeah, Thraken is, I mean, it's not like this information proves in any way useful to Han, like let's say in any way that seriously helps him later down the line. But still, you ask yourself, why is this even happening? And I have no satisfying answer for that question. And yeah, on Drell, we have another faction that's been forming, and they are called the Drellists. They essentially also want to kick out all Selonians and Corellians in that case, so they are basically like the League of Humans, but for the Drell. And we have a bunch of questions being brought up, which is that why did Thraken, show his threat that he's gonna blow up more stars only on Corellia? So he broadcasted this threat that he's gonna blow up, that more stars are gonna get blown up, turned into supernovas if his yet unstated requirements are not followed. But he did so only on Corellia, and there's like, wait, why did this happen really? And how can he even, convincingly form a threat like that? Like, why does he feel like he has the ability to pose that threat? Where's that power coming from that he has? And I was like, that's interesting enough for now. To be honest, this could just be me not remembering, but I have no clue why in the end Thraken showed his threat to blow up more stars only on Corellia. It could be potentially, I think there might have been an explanation for this about the supposed true conspirators in the story who aren't Thraken apparently, and it could have something to do with them. I honest to God don't remember. I might have it in my notes here, so bear with me. Maybe we're gonna find out, but it could also just be leading to nothing, I suppose. Chapter 6. So Luke and Gariel, they now have their kind of awkward reunion. Luke says he could have always been ordered away, and therefore he never came to visit, which I was wondering. So like, there is this looming question in the air of why did you never come back? Because I mean, they had, I wouldn't really say it was like a deep love for another, but there was enough in Truce at Bakura that could have justified something happening in theory. I mean, not really, considering the Thrawn trilogy exists. It's happening later, and Luke Skywalker very much has no girlfriend in this trilogy. So their interactions were always like, they always had a deadline. But yeah, this is the question that's looming like in the air. Why did you never visit me? Like in universe, at least that's the question. And he says like, oh, I would have, there would have been the possibility that I get ordered away by the New Republic, and I didn't like want to do that to you, which to me doesn't really make sense, because as far as I know, and I don't know when exactly it happened, to be honest with you, so don't pin me down on this information, but at this point, clearly, Luke holds no official rank in the New Republic. He's like he's not a general, he's not an admiral or anything. He's just Luke. He's just the Jedi. I mean, he receives funds from the New Republic to supposedly still fund his Jedi Praxium on Yavin 4. But other than that, he has no. I mean, sure, his conscience would probably force him to go and help the New Republic if there is need to do so. Then again, we did have the same thing in Black Fleet Crisis. which I guess is less so a fault of the Corellian trilogy than of itself, where Luke is just going around with a woman and not really caring what his faction is going through. So yeah, but still, like, him not caring, I mean, I hate that he does, but at least like from a pure factual perspective, that is what's more true, because yeah, he holds no official rank. He can't actually be ordered away. He can just say, no, I'm staying on Bakura. So yeah, that's this. And nobody has really ordered him to do anything for quite a while at this point. Like, I don't remember the last time Luke has been ordered something. Probably like Return of the Jedi at this point, or maybe Truce of Bakura, I suppose. Because yeah, it's been a while since he held any official rank. But yeah, we get a bit more lore about the Selonians, and I just wrote this down as a random fact that sort of stands on its own, and you can do whatever you want with it. Is that Selonians, they basically have one nest. That nest consists of one queen and multiple males, and the queen births 4 or 5 quintuplets per year, and that she does that for about 30 to 40 years. So she, so I guess Selonians, they have a lot of babies. I mean, there you go. But yeah, that's just judge that however you will. Drachmas. So Drachmas, the Selonian, she keeps asking Han about the cultural norms about of humans, because she just wants to understand them. Specifically how the family structures work, because it's kind of a running theme through this book, is that Selonian families are much more tied to pure blood. Like the notion that Thrakensaal Solo, who is related to Han by blood, would even consider doing the things that he does to Han, that's like, it leaves Drachmas behind like incredulous, because she can't comprehend how this is a thing. And Han is like, yeah, this happens. This is pretty normal, actually. And another thing, and that's also unfortunately going to be paid off pretty badly, so at the end of the Corellian trilogy, is that the Solonians, considering they are so truthful as beings, have a very, very hard time lying, like, ever. And just remember that for now. That's their thing. They have a very hard time lying, and yeah, that it's like gonna somewhat be paid off towards the end, but in a very bizarre way. And the Selonians, I wanted to know more about Selonians, because the Corellians got a pretty nice world building arc, sort of, in the first book. So I was like, okay, maybe we're at least gonna get everything about this whole system. But yeah, the Selonians really, really didn't get a favorable depiction in this trilogy, I have to say. Exactly. So Han, he insists on her sharing. So she has pretty important information that's very, very apparent, and Han insists on her sharing this. He acknowledges that there might be cameras in the room, or that the room might be bugged, but he's like, yeah, we're never gonna get out of this, and it doesn't even matter if we speak Selonian or not. In theory, they could just get a translator and find out what they mean, like what they are saying, in case that somebody's listening into them. So is that just like, come on, share with me. And that's going to be one of the things I'm not going to like about Selonians, is the trying to pry them for information. That's going to be really, really annoying in this trilogy, I have to say, unfortunately. So Drachmas and Han, they know that the League of Humans, or they suppose they know that the League of Humans can't actually get the power to destroy stars. So it means that they have to get help from somewhere. And Han has a little callback to the moment where he received the message with, the threat of blowing up the stars. And he determines that it's possible that one singular character is at fault for what's happening, which is Mara Jade. So apparently it's Mara Jade who would fit the bill perfectly. She did a lot for the New Republic, but she was always secretive and might want the Empire back. Yeah, as you can imagine, I mean, look at my profile picture, then the name of my channel. As you can imagine, I'm not a super big fan of this implication. And the thing is, I wouldn't even say that Mara Jade is bad in this trilogy. She's actually somewhat okay to nice. The problem is, and that's really a general problem when people want to say like, oh, this character saying a certain thing, they can't know what it's true, so it's not bad that something is depicted in a specific way. Let's say this, Han can't possibly know whether Mara Jade did or didn't do anything, so this depiction being in here is not bad. But I actually disagree, because there's a very important thing that happens in this book, and this whole Mara Jade thing is going to continue for a while, is that the book gives me no indicator that this accusation levied against her by Han is unrealistic. The book actually wants to make me believe that this is an actual possible thing to happen, because let's say if the book didn't want this for me to believe, then they would have had a chapter with Mara Jade in here where it's pretty clear what she's doing, and you immediately get the sense like, oh, okay, this is just bullshit, but it's like one accusation they have. But no, we won't actually get to see Mara Jade for quite a while now. She's just going to be talked about, and then she will come back. And to me, this is an indicator that this book wants me to actually consider the possibility that Mara Jade could be the one who is colluding with the League of Humans to kick out the New Republic. And the only thing that I have going for me that makes me believe that it's not the case is just my knowledge that later on down the timeline she's still there. So of course she didn't actually do anything. It's just I know how what the follow-up stories are. So of course I know that this isn't a thing, but the book wants me to believe that it could be. And it's like, this is not in character for Mara Jade. Mara Jade, I'm okay with Mara Jade being depicted as non-trustworthy. That is no problem at all. That's perfectly understandable. But her colluding with some weird human supremacists in the Corellian sector to incite a revolution, that's such a, I mean, reach isn't even a term anymore. That's such a, like, it's so disrespectful almost as a depiction of Mara Jade. Because still, I mean, the character isn't actually depicted that way, right? She doesn't have dialogue where she says this, or she doesn't have internal monologue where she thinks this. But the book wants me to believe that it is true, and that's what's annoying me. That's what is bad about this depiction. It wants to make you believe something which so obviously is not true, even without knowing what happens to Mara Jade after this story. And yeah, I was not a big fan of this, and unfortunately, that's going to be a while until this goes away. So there you go. Chapter 7, and we're continuing right off there. So not only Han is somebody who is suspicious about Mara, Leia is as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm just referring back to everything I just said. So there you go. Oh yeah, as a joke, I wrote down that it's good to remind myself that Mara has red golden hair and a tight-fitting overall. I guess Roger McBride Allen understood what to write in this book to get you going. So there you go. She still has the one and only outfit everyone knows. Yeah, exactly. Mara is actually there now. She just says, I haven't done anything that you're accusing me of, but I have no proof of it not happening either, because how the hell are you going to prove that something didn't happen? So, yeah, I'm here. Either accept it or don't. So, yeah, that's what I said. So now, the time in which she was absent to possibly conspire. Now that time is obviously finished already. Now we're back in the time of, it's sort of the aftermath of what's happened. But of course, nothing happened because of Mara Jade. So we just have her word here and the knowledge what happens afterwards. And of course she didn't do it. It wouldn't make any sense. But the book wants you to treat this as an actual threat. So yeah, not a big fan of this. And yeah, Leia, even multiple times, she asks for, quote, Mara's opinion, or more importantly, her pretend opinion. So there you go. It's just really, really pushing in on this right now. And the thing is, this is something that I really wondered about. In the first book, in Ambush at Corellia, we get to see a list of coordinates that point to specifically stars, which, indicates that it's the future targets of the supernova machine, whatever that exactly is. And there's timestamps, which basically signalize during this time, this star is going to explode, meaning everything that is in that system obviously will get destroyed. The problem is the last coordinate in this list is Corel. Corel is the sun of the Corellian system, so where the planet of Corellia itself is as well. And that made me wonder, like, how exactly is this? I mean, beyond like being a huge dump on Leia's reputation, how exactly is this a credible threat? Because the pretty open goal of Thraken is to rid Corellia of all the non-humans and to establish a dictatorship like there was one back in the day. But if he destroys the sun of the system in which Corellia is, well, then he's going to destroy his planet as well. So everybody with a bit of sense should be like, wait, why the hell would you threaten to blow up? It's like, I don't know, Al-Qaeda threatening, we're going to blow up all of these buildings, and towards the end, we're going to blow up ourselves, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's like, okay, so you're just going to take yourselves out of the picture? I guess I'm supposed to take that seriously? Or like, we're going to nuke ourselves if you don't surrender? It's like, wait, why? That's like you're destroying yourself, but pretending that destroying us and you continuing to live on is your actual goal. So I don't know how that makes sense. Like, they're threatening to destroy the sun in the system they are living in, and that they want to keep going. But yeah, there you go. I hope you get what I mean, because it's a bizarre thing and it doesn't really get an explanation. So there you go. Yeah, obviously. So the ultimatum that Thraken has leveraged against the New Republic is supposed to weaken the reputation of the New Republic. It's like, okay, I guess, yeah, sure. What Mara Jade now wants to do is she basically has a remote control for the Jade Fire, and she's like, I'm gonna use this to try and navigate the Jade Fire here to get us out. And she basically gives up on trying to convince Leia that she's innocent, which is fairly logical. And that's what I mean. Like, the actual Mara Jade you see in here, and like how she's talking and how she behaves, this isn't necessarily bad. It's that the book wants me to believe something which is not true, and not even remotely true. Like, not even believably true. And especially after this many books now, where Mara Jade was either entirely non-existent as a character or horribly mischaracterized, this does not help. It doesn't help to improve my opinion about this era, certainly. So there you go. That's just it. Exactly. And yeah, the problem is they were also under arrest, basically. And if anyone just listened in on their conversation, they would have heard that Mara Jade mentions that there's, a remote control for her ship in her apartment, and they could just destroy that apartment, and they wouldn't be able to escape, and everything, like, the story would be over. But they don't, so the story isn't over yet. So there you go. Lucky them, I guess. And yeah, that's it. Chapter 8. Han is pissed because Drachmus, the Selonian, like, she doesn't get better at basic, and like he's just annoyed about this, which was, I don't know, I guess it was kind of funny. Yeah, whatever. Han is just being himself, I suppose, here. And yeah, Han suggests that, he suggests that they have a plan that basically it would get them killed. Like, it's not, they don't follow it through. Drachmus points that out to him, and his response to it is like, "Oh, you're a big help. Like, you have no ideas of yourself." It's like, okay, fair enough, but you are suggesting that you basically kill yourselves. So maybe pointing out that something is not a good idea is valid as well. That's at least what I would say. I'm not sure if everyone agrees here, but that's my take. Exactly. Oh yeah, another question I was pondering, and don't worry, there's going to be no answer for this, is why exactly do you send your chief of state to a very dangerous planet when you have no actually disposable armed forces ready? Like, they make a point out of saying we have no fleet, like we have no fleet to speak of that we can send there to rescue them. It's like, okay, I suppose so, but why even show up there if you already, because they knew that from the beginning. So why show up there if you have no fleet ready? I mean, it's dumb enough that they keep scrapping their ships for no real reason, but yeah, that they are sending their leader to a system that's basically at the brink of anarchy and revolution, and they have no ships there, and they are taking their children there. It's like, oh, maybe not, don't do that. Like, just as an idea, generally. But yeah, there you go. So, Leia and Mara, they have to climb around at the outside of the house that they are in to, like, get to her apartment and then escape and everything. And Leia gets stuck in the drapes of the floor that she needs to go to, and she tries kicking, like, herself out to break free. And what she does is she kicks the windowsill and then sprains her ankle as well. And I remember just thinking that this was so stupid. I mean, it's the same thing here. I don't think this actually gets paid off. Like, there's no, there's nothing happening because of that. But it's just the knowledge that she's trying to kick herself out, and she actually also manages to sprain her ankle, like pretty shortly after Han sprained his ankle. It was just so funny. I was like, you're really not subtle about this. But yeah, nothing really happens with that injury, so that's just it. Yeah, after they finished, so she sticks the rope that she's been climbing from into another window, and away from the one where the League of Humans, like, away from the window where the League of Humans have their quarters, so the guards can't see that somebody climbed down. Like, hey, that's mildly smart for Leia to do. I like it whenever they do something mildly smart. It's better than nothing, so I'll take it. They almost do get caught, and there's this very brief scene where it almost reads like, like a stealth mission, like they're trying to hold still and they hear the steps and there's like lights going on. And it's like, oh, if they don't do it, unfortunately, but if they leaned more into this stealth angle, it would have been kind of cool, actually. Sadly, it doesn't happen. So yeah, that's it. And yeah, Han and Drachmus, towards the end, they get saved by other Selonians. Han is suspicious about them, and he considers refusing to go along, which, I mean, he's kind of not really himself in this chapter. Looking back at what's happening to him, I mean, it wouldn't have been worth it. He would have still been with Thraken, and that's never a good thing. But yeah, that's just it for him. Chapter 9. So the guard that almost found out Mara and Leia, he gets killed by Mara. And Leia is really bothered by him dying. And I did wonder, like, I guess it was supposed to signalize that Leia, isn't used to seeing death, which to me is not really the case. I mean, she has killed stormtroopers in A New Hope already. She also killed them in Return of the Jedi, in front of the shield generator where she had like a blaster wound on her arm. She just shot 2 guys straight up, like from point blank range. So that this moment of shock, it's nice in isolation, but it makes no sense for Leia to feel this way, because at this point Leia has been through quite a bit of death. And unless it's like a very specific death with a specific feeling attached to it, like, let's say, Kula from the New Rebellion, other than that, it really doesn't make sense for Leia to react so strongly to this, because it's not a special person that has been killed, it's just a random guy who was gonna kill them. So yeah, there you go. And they ultimately do find Mara's remote control. They climb out on a windowsill, and they call the Jade Fire. And yeah, when Leia jumps onto the ramp of the Jade Fire, she fully lands on her sprained ankle. And Mara as well, she has like a cut on her leg, which starts to bleed more and more. And yeah, I already wrote down, like, I want to see how this gets paid off. And as you might imagine, it doesn't really. It's just, it happened. And that's sort of it. I mean, I guess I could almost say it's nice that nothing happened, because this, I don't know, it feels like very, very cheap if they if they've injured themselves over something stupid, and then they like have to continue to suffer throughout the book or even the whole trilogy, because that happens enough, at least, where it's like not interesting anymore to do this. I don't know. I mean, I guess, yeah, you can put bumps in their road, like that. It's not, it doesn't have to be smooth, but this was like, oh, okay, whatever, yeah. But yeah, nothing really. There wasn't really anything else to say here. So there you go. Chapter 10. We now get a very specific number. The New Republic apparently would need 45 days to mobilize a fleet to Corellia. Still a reminder, this is the place that their chief of state is currently at. They are at Bakura now, obviously. The Bakuran admiral, who's called Herta Osilich, he rightfully asks how a body like them even managed to defeat the Empire. And it's like, I don't know if it was supposed to come off as dickish the way he asked that question, but it really wasn't. It was a fairly fair question to ask. It's like, yeah, how did you actually manage to defeat Imperials if you are sending your boss somewhere when you have no troops to spare? Like, that makes no sense. And yeah, hey, by the way, don't forget the Hapens are still there. Remember them? I had a conversation about them recently again with some guys from the server, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess they in theory were a thing. Oh well, there you go. And yeah, Osilich, he kind of, he pretty casually tells the New Republic they secretly build ships and that they don't tell anyone about. And I was like, I guess this is okay. I mean, I understand them doing so. I don't feel like they should be obligated to tell the New Republic, but the way that he says it, it feels as though he's not supposed to do it, or they are not supposed to do it, because he says it as though it's like an admission of guilt almost, or like, oh, yeah, that's awkward. Yeah, like, I mean, yeah, with a faction like the New Republic, which demilitarizes itself while still in an active conflict. I mean, first of all, with the Empire still, no matter how much the Empire has lost in relevancy, it's still a thing. And they are sending their chief of state to, let me repeat it, to a system on the brink of collapse. And yeah, I was like, okay, I guess it makes sense that you would want to build your own planetary ships. And I mean, Bakura is in a very special spot, being very close to the home planet of the Siruk. But other than that, yeah, it felt weird, the tone in which he said it, because it felt as though it was something he wasn't supposed to do. Which I don't believe should be the case, but that's how he worded it, at least, or that's how it read like. Yeah, so the problem, of course, is there is still an interdiction field, which means that you can't move into the Corellian sector, or specifically also in the system, of course, where they want to go via hyperspace, because interdiction. And what they now want to use as something it's a new invention. It's called the Hyperwave Conservator. And what this thing does, and bear with me because it's kind of weird to describe, it projects a bubble around the ship that keeps it in hyperspace. It flies further than it would suppose, like that it's supposed to, with their actual hyperspace. And it basically utilizes its momentum in the hyperspace to carry it along just a bit further. And I was like, it's weird that out of all places in the world, Bakura is the system that comes up with it, because I mean, Bakura is a fairly modern, it's a pretty modern planet, and I guess it's still like very, very close to like a potentially still dangerous faction, being the Siruk. But it felt weird, like that Bakura of all places is the one place where this happens. I would feel like some more central planet would come up with such important military technology, or like, I don't know, Kuwait or something. A place that is either semi-known for technology, or like at least more central than Bakura. I mean, it wasn't a big problem. It's like, I mean, I guess it's a cool idea to let it work like this. I just wondered why Bakura specifically. And what they want to do is they want to go to Selonia now. It's a main target, obviously. It's one of the big Corellian planets. It's close to Talos and Trellis now, so Talos and Trellis being the two twin planets. And what they want to do is perhaps just lure out a few troops and to determine their strength. It's like, okay, sure, makes sense. You're cut off there. If you are in the system, you can't move out that quickly anymore without the interdiction field breaking down. So it makes sense. Like, you're launching a fake attack on a place that isn't as important to you, just to see, like, just to get a feeling of what are we even up against, really. Because yeah, at this point we still don't really know what the capabilities of all the conspirators are. I mean, we have the League of Humans on Corellia, we have the Drellists on Drell, we have later on the Absolutists on Selonia, but we don't quite get like what exactly it is that they possess as weaponry, as like ships. It's just in the air, kind of. So yeah. Exactly. And it's nice because, of course, the New Republic was worried that Bakura wouldn't lend them their fleet. I mean, it's quite something to want. Like, hey, we sort of need a bit of your fleet, especially with Bakura being like on the brink of the Siruk territory. And also, I mean, Bakuran officials are also like, yeah, we can't leave our planet unguarded for like months at a time, like potentially months at a time. So they are gonna help them Of course, not with her whole fleet, but they are sending some help. And they are actually pretty willing to help the New Republic, of course, because they want to repay them for when back then the Rebel Alliance still helped them in the Truce at Bakura. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, otherwise there's just setup here. Specifically, I mean, in Ambush at Corellia, we had this thing that the League of Humans was performing like excavations on Corellia, and now, even though there's no historical need for it on Drell, because like Drell are a very meticulous, culture that made sure to really document their history well, and now that makes them kind of wonder, like, wait, Drell also now starts doing these excavations. And of course, there's immediately this link there to what happened on Corellia. And people asked, like, specifically Marcha, so the aunt of Ibrahim, was like, wait, why exactly would we do this? Because there's no actual need to do it. So what's the point of this? And it's pretty cool, actually. And yeah, what Tendra does is she bribed her way off of Zakoria. So Tendra, the potential wife of Lando from last book, she bribes her way off of Zakoria to go to Corellia herself. Because what happens, and it's a very, very kind of bizarre. I mean, the setup is not bizarre. I guess the payoff is more so. Zakoria has a pretty sizable fleet that's gathering in front of their planet and is moving towards Corellia. And Tendra, while not knowing what exactly is happening, she knows that, this is not good news. And so what she does is bribes her way off the planet, and with her own ship, the Gent, or like the Gentleman something. I've written it down, the full name later, but just the Gent goes towards Corellia to inform Lando, or whoever else is there, but mostly, of course, to go to Lando. Chapter 11. Yeah, there was still just lots of setup. The kids, so Jane and Jason and Anakin, they tell Marcha about the cavern that they found. So with the weird cone-shaped cave that they found in Corellia, and the message that Mara brought to them, that of course they eavesdropped on when Han, Leia, and Mara were talking about it. They even wondered themselves why the message told that that things were to be kept secret, even though everyone knew what was happening the next day and knew about the threat of it happening the next day. And yeah, Anakin actually managed to remember all the data from the message and writes them down. Like, okay, there you go. That's just it for now. March and Ibrahim try to deduce what's going on here in the background. Once again, bear with me because this was a bit tough to grasp. It wasn't quite as easy to understand what they were even talking about. So there are two messages. There's one message from Mara that levies the threat of during this time, like at this timestamp, we're gonna blow up this sun. And then there was the second message that ordered the New Republic to deport all non-human Corellians from Corellia. And that would, like, if they did that in a very specific time, which was actually impossible for them to manage. Like, it would have been impossible even if they did do it. So those are two separate messages, and they might not actually be from the same source. I mean, presumably, if you don't know about anything else, both of those messages would be from Thraken, because Thraken actually was even present with his voice, I think, in the message about the supernovas, and of course the order to deport all non-Corellians came from him as well. But they might not actually be from the same source, because even the speech of Thraken that he delivers with the message, like about the stars being blown up, it actually never refers to either the list of stars that they have presented there or the timestamps that were given. It's just a random threatening speech that's like, if you don't do this, you will basically pay, but it never directly mentions the supernovas, and like the message itself also doesn't reference him. And either by design or by accident, the message itself comes in post-explosion. So, apparently they are to report the arrival of Leia and also the arrival of the message to Leia to the true conspirators, so the revolts can get started. Thraken actually does it, but then he also goes out and falsely claims that he is the one who controls the explosions. He immediately cuts off all of communication, so the conspirators can't reveal that he is lying. Why ever they even would want to do that, but they can't do it. And then everything is sinking into chaos, so Thraken can come in and seize power. And if this sounded a bit insane to you, I'm sorry, I wasn't actually able to make more sense of it than how I managed here. What actually is happening, that's like gonna be more and more clear towards the end, but it's still gonna be, it's even hard to determine like how many of the setups have been paid off, because there's so much random stuff thrown in. And it also like poses the question of, this is now just two characters who try to determine what's happening. Of course, they can be wrong, but am I supposed to understand that they are wrong and that perhaps possible things being mentioned not being paid off is like that is by design, or like it's, you know what I mean? It's pretty tough to determine, like, is this just bad writing because it never got paid off, or is this how it's supposed to be because characters can be wrong about their assumptions? And I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of weird. So I mean, I guess I would say they can in theory be wrong, and so it isn't necessarily a knock against the book, and it may just be them being wrong. But yeah, I mean, it is reasonable enough, I suppose, to believe that the Thraken can't actually be the one who's behind all of this, because the League of Humans shouldn't be that well equipped, and there needs to be somebody in the background who's doing it, especially since all of the revolts seem very coordinated as they happen at the same time. And yeah, it still doesn't explain anything about the excavations. That's gonna come in later. But yeah, I was like, I felt like this could be smart, but it was just like, you have to imagine this was a pretty short summary of what the two characters were talking about, but it was actually in the book, it was pretty long. Like, it was a long exposition dump, and it was kind of tough for me to read, to be honest with you, because suddenly there's like such a swath of like there's such a wave of information hitting you out of nowhere, and like, wait, I can't even connect this to anything. Hold on. Especially because this book usually doesn't carry that much information in its sentences. So yeah, it's been kind of tough to really make a whole lot of sense about it. So chapter 12. Han, he was rescued by the Selonians, and he's been crawling around in the towns of the Selonians for hours at this point. I do like it when he recognizes that that the Selonians he usually encounters, like he encountered like back in his childhood or something, that they are usually they are basically trained to be approachable to humans. That's something that the Selonians explain to them. They are trained to be approachable to humans, and how he also thinks like, I actually know pretty little about Selonians and probably about the Drell too, even though I come from here, which is, as I said, it's a pretty nice little scene of introspection about Han. Like, what do I even know about this place, really? Like, yeah, okay. There's this little scene where Luke, he promises Gariel's daughter Melinza that he'll protect her, because she's asking like, does mommy really need to go with you? Like, can't she just stay here? And I mean, as I said, like, I don't need Gariel to be connected to Luke. I'm pretty fine without her existing, but I really had to I have to say I liked this. It was a nice little scene. It was like half a page perhaps, but it was nice enough. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, this is sweet enough, so I can't really knock it too much. And yeah, Tendra is still flying in her ship. It's called the Gentleman Caller, or just, Gent for short. And she's going to try to contact Lando. And that's really all there is. So, spoiler about Tendra's part in this trilogy, because as I've been told, this is the most involved Tendra will ever be, really, in any book. And considering, I mean, sure, Lando, maybe Lando isn't really a big, important protagonist, but Lando is a relatively central character if we take out the big three as the central characters themselves out of the equation. Like in the next round of important characters, I feel like Lando belongs in there. So this Lando love interest being like pretty, unpresent throughout Star Wars is kind of a disappointment. And this is the most present she's in this trilogy. And she's going to fly in her Gentleman Caller in her ship until the end of the last book, basically. And like the last 2 chapters that she's in the last book, then she finally reunites with Lando and more or less suggests that they might marry. So, yeah, it's a pretty big disappointment because I expected, like, the notion that Luke and Lando are gonna fly out there and find Lando a wife. It sounds, I mean, it doesn't sound like anything I need in a trilogy specifically about Corellia, like, because there's really no connection to this. It's one of the pretty basic indicators that there wasn't enough plot to fill with just Corellia, I suppose, and this Lando wife subplot filled the time a bit until they managed to reunite with the main plot. But yeah, Tendra not being that big of a deal is kind of sad because, I mean, yeah, spoiler alert, she is gonna marry Lando. So yeah, that's just it. It's there's nothing really to say to her about her, really. There you go. Yeah. Chapter 13. So Leia is still suspicious of Mara. So she becomes so Mara, actually. This was quite a funny scene. Of course, it's not true what Mara's gonna claim here, but it's actually a pretty great throwback. Like literally throwing back the argument in Leia's face. She basically, like in a fake way, accuses Leia of being the true conspirator and how she could have possible reasons to organize all of this. And Leia, of course, does counter that this is ridiculous. Why would she? And sure, of course it is ridiculous. Just as actually accusing Mara Jade of doing all of this is. And I was like, yep, this is a pretty well-deserved, clapback that Leia receives here by Mara. And this is what I mean, that it's also like a weird thing because I like that Mara does this. But still, the book wanted me to believe that Mara is a threat. And like, I don't understand how that information, how all of these pieces of information connected to in Roger McBride Allen's head, because it's like, it was a bit bizarre. Like, okay, am I supposed, like, there's this funny interaction, but yeah, I don't know. It was weird. It was definitely weird. And Leia now, she wants to go to Drell, since she assumes that Ibrahim, who's the only person from the Corellian system who left with the kids and Chewbacca, would probably go there since it's its home planet. It's like, okay, that makes perfect sense as an assumption. Mara instead wants to go to Corellia to fight the root of the revolution that's going on, and they can't agree on either of those plans. Leia doesn't want to go back to Corellia to risk anything too much. Mara is like, we probably shouldn't go to Drell because realistically, of course, she wants to go there for the kids. Realistically, what can you actually do for them right now? Not a whole lot. And Leia kind of reluctantly agrees with that as well. So they go to Selonia. Was kind of a weird scene, like, okay, we can't agree on A or B, so let's just say C, why not? But there you go. And he had the party on Drell, so, just to make sure it's Ibrahim, Marcha now, Chewbacca, and Jaina, Jason, Anakin. They find the excavation, the same similar thing that's happened on Corellia, and they will try to break in and see if they can find the same structure that they found in on Corellia as well. Chapter 14. So Han has been brought to a character called Zalkut. She is a pilot from the Hunchuzuk hive, so like one of the hives of the Selonians, and he'll be brought to Selonia to help them rebel against the upper hive. So the upper hive, those are the absolutists. They are the ones who also, similarly to the others, want to secede from the New Republic and be independent. Whereas the Hunchuzuk hive and other hives, they are called the Republicans, who sure also maybe want a bit more autonomy, but want to stay tied to the New Republic. And yeah, there you go. It's just like, okay, I guess Han is gonna do this now. And just to make sure that you understand, basically in this book, Han does not a whole lot more than just crawling around. Like, for over half of this book, he's crawling around in the tunnels. And that's not particularly compelling to read. It's also not that there isn't a whole lot of stuff just happening there. And Han also isn't having any really meaningful conversations. So it's like, why exactly are you wasting a very central character to Star Wars in just nothing, really? He's doing nothing. And sure, he needs to break out, but this could have taken a lot less time than it ultimately did. So I was like, well, okay, I suppose. And yeah, the party on Drell, they went to the excavation. They started digging there. And they kept Ibrahim in their vehicles so that if necessary, they were gonna leave very quickly. If somebody found them out, there would be somebody there who like keeps the vehicle running. It's like, okay, yeah, it's fine, makes sense. Chapter 15. The party on Drell, they find the same cone-shaped cave that they did on Corellia. Anakin, of course, once again starts to press buttons until everything just works. And yeah, this place, it started to repel rocks. So, like, rocks were falling towards it, and they repelled them. And Marcha, seeing that the place can actually do this, and remembering how scientists always talked about how Corellia is an unnatural system, like the way that Corellia works and how everything's positioned in there, it clearly is like this doesn't make sense. Like, why exactly is Corellia the way that it is? And that's like the more interesting part of this trilogy, like the Corellian system, the planet of Corellia, the whole world building that's associated with that. That's actually kind of interesting. And yeah, with these thoughts, she determines that what this thing is actually a giant repulsor that has the ability to move entire planets. Those are giant repulsors, and yeah, they kind of can do that, which is sort of crazy. We'll get to more details in Shonen and Centerpoint, because there's more exposition about them there. But that's just it for now. It's okay, giant repulsor, sure, yeah, okay. What I did wonder, and that was something I wondered about as well. It's the why now. The question, why now? What I mean with that is, apparently, like, nobody seems particularly surprised about this. Because that this thing is something that exists. It's just that nobody knows where it is. Everyone sort of seems to know about this thing existing, and nobody seems surprised about it. So it's just like, if everyone sort of knows about this thing, and obviously it sounds really, really fucking useful, why the hell are people just now trying to find these things? Like, why didn't the Empire at the height of its power try to find it? Or like the Dictator of Corellia at the height of his power? why is this a thing? Like, why is it now? Only now that they try to find it. Of course, if those things were found out already, well, the Koreans would have presumably won immediately. So of course it can't happen. But then again, the environments on the planets, they like, or the people, they don't treat it as though this comes as a huge surprise to them. It seems as though, yeah, everyone sort of was aware of it, and there's that's just it. Yeah, we know about it. Like, oh, okay, I guess it's a thing that people are aware of. I wasn't, but there you go. We now know. And yeah, there you go. Chapter 16. So 3PO, he interrupts R2D2, who is checking on a low priority signal. So they are on the Lady Luck, and there's a low priority signal that keeps being repeatedly sent out. And since R2 is like needed at Lando's side at the moment, 3PO interrupts him right as he's about to check what it's even about. And of course, since 3PO is a dick and doesn't listen to R2, he doesn't even get to explain what this is and that there is something coming in. So they move away. It's like, oh yeah, it felt kind of stupid. It's like, okay, yeah, I remember the OT when 3PO was a dick to R2, thanks. And I guess he never not was one, but it's like there should be a pretty easy case for R2 to be like, hey, sure, it's a low priority signal, whatever that means, like in a tangible way, but hey, there's a signal coming in. It might as well be pretty important. It would have been pretty important because it's the woman that Lando lusts after, so that's kind of central. And once again, this is not something that has a lasting negative impact on anything, and it's always a thing that happens. It's like these fake moments of something bad happens, like a character sprains their ankle, or a signal that should be picked up is ignored. And you get the feeling of, oh, okay, this is here for a very specific purpose. It's supposed to set up something not happening that would have brought the characters to a better position, but it doesn't now. And now that's going to be paid off in a negative way. The thing is, it doesn't really get paid off in any way, neither positive nor negative. It's just, I guess it's just the thing that happens, and it prevents characters from knowing something now or doing something now, but actually has no lasting impact on the story or on their progression. It's the same thing with both Han and Leia spraining their ankles. That's never mentioned again. It's like, okay, why do you give them an actual like injury when this doesn't do anything? And it's the same thing here. Like, okay, it reads as though, oh, they have ignored her. Now there's gonna happen something, but it really doesn't. Like, this changes nothing. It's like, I guess so. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and the Selonians. So the Selonians, of course, they have their ship. The problem is that the Selonians aren't really a space, a space pilot culture. They are very much a land culture. So the ships that they have are very subpar, especially since a lot of them have, I think, been destroyed at this point. And yeah, they basically fly a pile of junk, which means they are now, as they have started to fly away, drifting through space with Han, like with no direction. They just have their momentum going on. And yeah, Mara and Leia being in the Jade Fire, they find the Bakuran fleet. Leia instantly knows, because it's the Bakuran fleet, that it has something to do with Luke. And Mara agrees. She says, like, quote, "That's something we can expect from him without a problem." It's like, oh, hey, there you go. It's the two characters. It's one of the two characters I want to acknowledge each other, acknowledging the other one. That's kind of nice. I like that. But they won't join them since, the Bakurans are in attack formation and communication still doesn't really quite work. And it's like, okay, that's somewhat fair, but I'm like, if people were to call it in the Bakuran fleet that there is a ship flying around, Luke should probably immediately see it and determine, like, oh, wait, that's the Jade Fire, don't shoot. I mean, fair enough. Okay, they just won't reunite for now. And especially since the Guardian, so one of the Bakuran ships that's in the system, has been given the order to release all but five of its starfighters to the other invasion ships. So the Guardian, they moved into the system with their new invention, and the Guardian kind of went on for too long, so it's up ahead a bit, and it's pretty beaten up. So they're like, okay, we're gonna have a new plan. We're gonna move out all of the starfighters out of the Guardian, but five, and to the other invasion ships. They're called Intruder, Defender, and Paladin. And I'm like, wait, they were given the order. How exactly are you given the order if communication doesn't work? There is something that gets repeatedly, mentioned here. It's something also Ocelot gives order to use, which is to create a lasercom connection. So laser communication, that's what they are using. And the thing is, it's just like, it's pretty slow, and the sound quality is very bad and all of that. But I'm like, doesn't the Jadefire have something like this? Like, I feel if they would see the Jadefire on on their screens, on the tactical screens, they would probably still first try. Like, I mean, the Jadefire wouldn't move in with intent to attack, so they would try to communicate, like, hey, identify yourself or something, and then it would be like, oh yeah, I'm Mara Jade. I have Princess Leia here with me, and we're cooperating. She can talk. It's like, yeah, she's telling the truth. Please, let's help each other. But that just doesn't happen. So it's like, that's bizarre, kind of. Chapter 17. So yeah, towards the end, everyone is sort of together in space. So Han, he's drifting in the spaceship with Zalkut and Drachmas. Lando and Luke, they are on the Lady Luck, and Leia and Mara, they are on the Jadefire. The Jadefire connects to the Selonian ship that's there with Han. And yeah, he still believes that Mara Jade is hostile and will attack him, which is dumb, as I said. Han and Leia, they have like a pretty, emotional reunion. That was nice enough. It's like, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, and we get more about Lasercom. So Lasercom, it just works enough to keep contact between like a fighter pilot and his commander. And it works from Luke's X-Wing to the Lady Luck. But it didn't seem to work from the Jadefire. I was like, okay, perhaps it's like because of the distance, probably. And I was like, okay, that sort of makes sense. I can accept that. Yes, so the Guardian, the Bakuran ship, it was left empty. And the engines were just barely repaired because they were broken down. They were just barely repaired, so Ocelot can fly it with a remote control as well. It's funny that I don't think there's a lot of mention of ships being remote controlled, but it's kind of good that it happens, because it feels like, yeah, that this should be a thing. Like, probably a lot more. Like, I mean, drones are a big thing on Earth, so like remote controlled starships, or even whole actual, capital ships, that should be a thing more often. That makes sense. And what they want to do is just to use this thing as bait. So, just to see, like, do they have some kind of special plan? Do they have a secret weapon that we don't know of, or like a special fleet that we don't know of? And that's why they are sending this one out first, just to bait the enemy, which makes perfect sense to me. And yeah, it's apparent that apparently the Selonians have found the repulsor, because their planetary repulsor is used to actually destroy the Guardian. Oh, okay. That's happening now. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and on Selonia, as I said, there are the Republicans. They want autonomy, but to stay in the New Republic, and the Absolutists, who are the radicals. And yeah, so the League of Humans, the Drellists, and the Absolutists sort of joined together in this fight. So there's a fight in space now. The titular assault on Selonia. They joined together in this fight, and which means they have been definitively proving that they are puppets of someone else. And yeah, I mean, this gets resolved. They are puppets of someone else, so that's just a thing now. We don't know much more. That's it. And yeah, chapter 18, there really wasn't anything more to say here. We get a brief POV from Wedge. He's here at the end. After he evacuated one of the places that would have had a lot of potential victims if the next star was destroyed. Like right before the next star explodes, he evacuated all of the people. The problem is the next place that's supposed to get destroyed by the supernova has millions of inhabitants, so it's impossible for them to evacuate those. Which means they basically need to have something else happen so that they can live. And Jesus Christ, this was record time, because this was it. This is Assault on Selonia. There really isn't anything to say about this book that I haven't said already. The thing is, it's not a bad book by any stretch. There's some nice themes. Characters are a lot of times actually pretty nicely done. Definitely the world building, like the history about the Corellian sector, the Corellian systems, they are pretty nice. Problem is that the first book was the heaviest on this, like with giving out info about the system, and this book has kind of abandoned it. I mean, there's still some things, and you learn a bit more about cultures, but it definitely feels a bit less than in the first book. And yeah, otherwise, I mean, the story is fine. There's kind of logical stretches to what's happening occasionally, but it works okay enough that, like, I have no strong hatred or love for it. It's just, it's a book. I mean, I have read the last one, so it doesn't seem as though it's a very important book, which it probably should be, but it doesn't offer anything that is so central that it feels like I needed to read this book. Otherwise, I wouldn't understand anything that I'm reading now afterwards. And yeah, I was torn for this one between like a 6 and 6.5. I think I'm going to go with a 6 because, yeah, it's just, it was, I mean, it's a short book, which at least that's good. It's like, I think this one was only 280 pages, and that's in German, so it's a bit shorter probably in English as well. It's only 18 chapters, so fine, I suppose. But yeah, it's really a drag. I mean, still, it's like 900 pages, the entire trilogy, even though the entire trilogy could have been done in probably like a 400 to 500 page book with just the most crucial aspects of the story in there. And yeah, it unfortunately, it does not deliver very well. It's pretty sloggy. It's slow. It's not very much filled with anything of substance. It's competent enough. It's okay. It's not overly insulting. It's just fine. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about this. I should be back. In the last week, I couldn't come on because my mom celebrated her birthday. Of course, I was not going to miss that. Next week should be fine. I should probably have time. I did already finish Showdown at Center Point, so we're going to finish the Corellian trilogy probably next week, same time. And then afterwards, finally, I hope I'm gonna be able to make it through the entire book by next week. I probably should. We finally can move to the books that I've really been looking forward to, which is Spectre of the Past. So Hand of Throne, of course, and Survivor's Quest, but now we're on Spectre of the Past. I've already read the first 3 chapters, 3 chapters, I think. And Oh, it's so great. I truly missed really, really looking forward to reading Star Wars books because there were too few in between that I really had this feeling towards. So, yeah, as I said, this is it for today. Next week should be no problem of doing Shot at Center Point. I am already finished with the book. And yeah, that's really all there is to say for now. If you have reached this point, I thank you for listening for this long, and see you next time. Bye bye.